And this afternoon, there's a strong push for a school to be constructed in the Faana community after 9 school children drowned on their way from school Wednesday. And of course, we know that this community is near Waja and has no school, forcing parents to send their children to school in the adjoining communities via river on some rickety boats. Disaster struck on Wednesday when a boat carrying some 12 school children aged between 1 and 13 years capsized, drowning some 8, with 3 of them surviving. One person is still missing, and Joy News understands that the owner of the boat has reported himself to the Ghana Police Service. A community leader who spoke to Joy News demanded that government constructs a school within the community immediately.
They have to do is to close it. When they close it, then the river will return to its natural, if you like, standing, so that as and when it overflows its banks, we can have it, gone into the sea at the other side. That's what I can say for now. If they don't do that, we'll continue to have problems. I believe that one of those children gone today can stand and do something about that thing over there. Should they become somebody prominent in society tomorrow? And we don't know what they are coming to be like. And so I believe that should they be alive tomorrow, they can do something. So if they are pushing for compensation, why not? You understand? Because it is government's responsibility to have school over here. And government FQ, everybody should be in school. So why should you go to school and then die? I wish you are talking to NADBO, because you are talking about arrangement.
No, but you are the assembly.
Here together with me, then we'll know what to do. Now that they are not here, I may be taking unilateral decisions. I believe that South NADBO will come, and then I will want them to collaborate with that of Waja, because they created the problem, so that we can find solution to that. But before then, the traumatized, families, we are tended to. And then when things ease down, we will know the way forward.
And there's more for us on the story. Joining me now is Carlos Caloni, our colleague here at Joy News, who's been following up on that story, being to the community, comes now through with a detailed perspective on the matter, and a pretty disturbing situation there, Carlos. Let's start off by talking about what you found out when you went into the community.
Okay, so I found out that the community itself is very isolated. It's far away from the township, and this is a community with about 300 to 400 residents who are mainly fisher folks. And so they do not have any school in that community. Right. And so the kids are forced to cross to other places to actually have the education. And so that is the nature of the situation in the community.
And let's talk about the local residents and through their representatives. What's been that plea and demand, really?
So basically what they are demanding now is compensation. They want compensation, and they are asking that a school should be built for them in the community to prevent the school kids or children crossing the lake to school in other communities, which is actually exposing them to this sort of danger.
We'll be listening to some of them shortly, but this call or plea for a school building itself, paint the picture to us. How dangerous would it be, just to demonstrate the point that they indeed need the schools, when you have school children crossing the river, which is now becoming a source of threats for the school children?
All right, so this community is more like an island community. And so when we got to where the water is, we had to walk like almost a kilometer to get to the community. This is a community with about 300, 400 residents, actually. And so these kids at tender age, 1.5 years, who would have to cross this water to school without any life jacket, without any adult actually guiding them, is a major, major problem. And so getting a school in the community is the surest way of averting any reoccurrence of such a situation.
You've been engaging some parents on this. First of all, they must be sad, obviously, losing these little ones. But what do you get from them?
So I see a lot of pain, really. We spoke with one woman who's had about 2 of her kids in there. And the last body that was found this afternoon belongs to a man, and he couldn't control himself. I mean, he had to be supported by residents from the community. So there's a lot of pain and wailing, and I would say it's a solemn kind of situation in the community as we speak.
Mira futa tami boba 5 moma kama gbo maka kwenye jina review mo gbo kwenye jina kuma bo nkejo fi review mo gbo mai ma pera ba ogbo na ha kanye dodo mo ko ma dole bobo mi avi onyun ra tomolo fi me mo ko li dodo klo du fufu e ma rota ta fe kana onyun ro ko amo fudu klo mi ro kaka mi aya nya ta fe review onyun ra tomo ba fa maro obu vinya sueto kple no vinya fevi sueto olo akoko dauda afimango ji mi ba rush ko ira okoji kaka mi aro koji ko o ba fa la afimango ji to tro ma fi ba po amamamle.
Okay, so she's basically saying that at the time the kids were supposed to have returned from school, they did not return. So she was alarmed, especially when she got the info that a boat had capsized. So she rushed there and realized that her 2 kids were involved, and they rushed them on the way. They actually passed away. So that is the update from the mother. Fifia nonoma ke nwa jofia police alo nad moto over miagboa.
Mara chama yo police over wakpo devi kuko yo ofo koko ira motri.
Okay, so she's just giving us updates on what the police came to do yesterday. They came to convey the body.
Okay, so very disturbed parent there, but let's talk about some other individuals you've been engaging on this matter. What have they been telling you?
So I also engaged with a survivor, a 13 or 15-year-old girl who shared this harrowing story with us, where she practically had to see her siblings drown, but she was helpless. She couldn't actually help the situation. And so you could see she really was very traumatized. After granting us the interview, she went to engage with some family members, but we saw that she was in a corner crying and all that. So clearly, they need some sort of psychological support at this point in time.
Oh, give us your name.
Please, my name is Enyonam Ekpe.
Okay, so what time did this incident happen?
Please, 5:40 p.m.
Can you tell us what happened?
Please, yes. Yesterday, when we are coming home, we don't get boat, and I saw some young boy driving a boat, and I called and said that we should come and pick us. So when the boy came, then I told her that we are plenty inside the boat, so we should remove some people down and go and come and take us. The boy told me, said that the boat to go. I told her again, then the boy said the boat to go. When I was going, then the boat has come and turned. Then I was holding my brother, and my brother fell down. Then I can't find my brother again. Then I hold the boat. When I hold the boat, and some man come and take me home.
So at that point, you couldn't get hold of your brother?
Please, no.
Okay. So what happened to the other people in the boat?
Please, they have died.
All right. So how did you raise alarm at the time?
Please, when we are coming, then the boy take us. Then I said we should put us down.
We are so sorry for your loss. Right. All right. Thank you so much. So that's the story from an eyewitness who actually survived the incident.
And you were raising a question about NADMO and the local authorities. That's a critical area for us to follow up on. You've been making some attempts to listen to authorities, what the account is, and what the way forward will be. What updates do we have, first of all, from the Office of NADMO on this, and then the local authorities?
So I spoke with the Deputy NADMO Director in charge of operations, and he told us he got the info last night, but they arrived at the scene at about midday today. So let's take a listen to what he's been saying.
We'll get that for you shortly. But obviously, NADMO is now responding, and then we know that the DC for the area, together with some local authorities, are beginning to work on this demand for a school. Does it look like something on top of the agenda for the DC now to relay to Accra?
Really, I don't see that to be on top of the agenda, because it appears that they are really not prepared for this And because they said they're going to have a series of meetings with the family, with residents, to actually understand what their demands are. So the demand for the family, or those that bereaved families, that they need some compensation, and also they want schools built for them. But some also raising issues of relocation. So these are all issues on the table as we speak now. But the DC is really not certain on which of these they're going to actually go with.
Okay then, Carlos, thanks for giving us that update. In the last hour, the Africa Education Watch has issued a statement on this development. Joining us via Zoom is the Executive Director for the group, Mr. Kofi Asare, who's been monitoring developments himself. Kofi Asare, thank you for your time. So what's the concern really from your outfit? And just before we get to that, I understand that there's an official statement you put out before joining us. So it's a good time also to just take a look at that document briefly. So we bring you on. So that statement is coming through from the Edu Watch, indicating that they are saddened by the news and the reports from Faana and Island community, as we indicated above, on the 25th of January 2023, according to Africa Education Watch, when a similar tragic incident happened. That's somewhere around the Tita Gome area within the Sene East municipality. It killed 8 people. And Edu Watch issued a statement requesting the Ministry of Education, as well as the Ghana Education Service, to urgently mobilize and supply just some life jackets to all pupils and teachers in that very island community, while working to establish some schools in those underserved island areas. Edu Watch also called for some increased collaboration between GES and local authorities to strengthen health, safety compliance at some of these landing bases where students boarded canoes to and from school. But rather, according to Africa Education Watch, GES supplied only 100 life jackets to the Atiagome area where the last incident occurred, and that's leaving other island communities leading to possibly today's event. Kofi Asare is with us. Thank you, sir, for your time. So what more could government do, looking at the fact that this is a natural cause, an accident for that matter, which wasn't planned?
Well, a sad day for right to education. First of all, my condolences to the bereaved families. Government has a responsibility to provide basic education for all children, irrespective of their geography or their geographical location. And so it is government's responsibility through the GES and the National Assemblies and the Ministry of Education to ensure that where schools are not available, children are able to access education without risking their lives. That is why when a similar incident occurred in January, we called on the GES and Ministry of Education to provide life jackets for all pupils in island communities and work closely with the local authorities in these island community districts so that, health and safety compliance will be strengthened at the landing bases. The GES responded, and within days, they sent 100 life jackets to Wayakope, which was the community that people died then. But our recommendation was that all island communities must have life jackets. Either you send the life jackets to the schools, so the teachers will administer them the way they inspect students who come from home every day, who are wearing uniforms. They will do same for the life jackets, so that every child who is using a boat or a canoe will wear them. Unfortunately, that wasn't done. Only for us to hear that a similar situation has led to the death of 9 poor children. This, we believe, is unacceptable. It's the height of insensitivity. And I think that the children should not be allowed to suffer for the negligence of state agencies whose mandate it is to provide basic education.
Yeah, but you're making all of these points mindful of the fact that the location or situation of a school facility has to be based on science and not necessarily the fact that you may have some unfortunate incidents happening.
What science? What science are we talking about here? The international conventions we subscribe to, commit us to ensure that the right of the child is protected, irrespective of their geographical location. The GES's own unwritten policy indicates that no one should commute more than 2 kilometers to school at the kindergarten level and more than 5 kilometers to school at the primary and junior high school level. Okay, and so even if you are going according to policy, that community should have a school. You understand? I don't belong to those who believe that you need about 500 people before you establish a school. If there are 300 people in the community, 200 people in the community, and you need to give them a school to save their life, to cut the risk of commuting through dangerous waters, it makes sense. It makes sense to do that than to allow them to pass through sharky waters, stormy waters, and then endanger their lives. And so the GES, the district assembly first, the district assembly, because they have the responsibility to construct schools. The district assembly has no excuse, okay, for not providing a school facility for this community. How many island communities are there in the Weja and the Bortianor area? How many island communities are there? You understand? How many are there? But the reality is that the government is not building basic schools. And so I understand that there's a huge resource deficit situation where we are building less than 1 basic school per year in the past 5 years. And so I will continue to emphasize that in the medium term, the GES should work with the local authorities, and then the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection should also be interested in ensuring that life jackets at least are available in all these schools so that the children can wear them to and from school. But in the medium term, we must roll out a strategy to provide school facilities for all island communities in Ghana. This is not the first, this is not the second, this is not the third, this is not the 10th. It happens every day. So when are we going to sustainably end this? Providing a school for this island community. That's the only way you solve this. And then finally, Parliament must be interested in this. As we keep calling on the GES, the district assemblies to do the right thing, and the Ministry of Education, Parliament has an oversight to perform. We are not seeing that. And so we have drawn in Parliament to exercise the oversight and ensure that there's a plan in place to provide basic schools for all island communities, not only in Accra, but right away from the northern region where there are many island communities there, up to the coastal regions.
Structure may be a challenge because even at the basic school, you were the same organization complaining about how government is shifting its priority in terms of expenditure on capital projects at the basic level as compared to what's happening to the free senior high school policy, for instance, the second cycle institutions. That's been a concern for you, knowing that that's government's expenditure approach. Are you not having doubts at this point that government may do this?
Well, I don't have doubts that government has the capacity to provide basic schools in underserved communities, especially in island communities. I don't have doubts. If government is able to prioritize spending properly, government should be able to save funds and build schools. It is a matter of priority. Government must change its priorities and let it reflect on the services that are consumed by the poorest of the poor. I keep saying that when public expenditure is going against commodities or services consumed by the poor, it is a problem. The people in this community are not middle class people. They are poor people. And so denying them a school means that you are not spending adequately to cater for the poor. And that is a rights issue and a social protection issue. So I will call again on government that whether the community is big or small, they deserve to have a school, not because of their population, but because of the need to mitigate the risk of traveling on stormy waters with very, very poor supervision daily to school. And also, at what point will we start prosecuting officials who are paid to ensure that there is sanity on our landing basis? Because it is someone's responsibility at the National Assembly to ensure that boats and canoes that are loaded there are observing the minimum health and safety requirements, including having life jackets. On what basis did a 13-year-old boy allegedly paddle a canoe of about 10 people? A 13-year-old boy, that is child labor to begin with. It means that authorities in the district went to sleep for a 13-year-old boy, according to the assemblyman's account, to have to have paddled this canoe to and from the school. And so a lot of things have gone on, and you cannot rule out criminal negligence in this case because someone in whose care these children were, someone has breached a duty of care. And to the extent to which this has resulted in the death of people, which is foreseeable, when you don't do your work well, I think that it's time for us to prosecute people for this level of negligence. Other than that, it will always be our sympathies,
right.
And then government will go and bury them,
I see.
and then we will continue like that. You must end at a point, and someone must face the law for being negligent.
A number of individuals joining the conversation now. Dr. Kola Ojo is also with us in this whole conversation. He's a senior lecturer at the Department of Geography and Regional Planning at the University of Cape Coast. But let's get some updates briefly from the Assembly member for the area, because he's been working all day, working with authorities to get some solution to this challenge within the community. Thank you, sir, for your time. So, any updates? What are the authorities telling you about this? Starting off perhaps from the concerns Nadmo was raising earlier. Thank you.
Thank you so much, boss. I think my brother raised a point concerning whose responsibility should be for these children to be safe. Rightly so, I think the parents ought to take responsibility as well as the school that these students attend. But the fact is that, these are people who have all their lives around water. And there used to be this man who normally takes these students to school and back. And what we learned was that the boat that they use at the moment is oars. And children, returning from school, and they may be angry around the time, they would like to get home in time and then do their own thing. I think that's how come you find a 13-year-old trying to, ferry other colleagues to the house, and then this accident happens. Accidents, we call it, so we may not be able to calculate when it's going to happen or not. But now that it has happened, I believe we should all wake up and then see what to do and solve the problem so that we cannot have same in the near future. The demand for a school structure within the community itself, how long has this been a demand on the table that you put before the authorities? And why are they not acting fast? That place, a lot of people used to dwell there, but as of now, numbers are a bit down. However, that should not deny them access to schools. And so we have islands in the river where they themselves can get about up to class 6 school, and then when they finish and they are grown enough to, ferry themselves across the river to anywhere to Kome or want to go to school, that can happen. But you see, the problem at stake is that I am saying, and I want to repeat it again, that the canal over there is an artificial one created, and that's how come we had 25 people lost their lives. Why do I say so? We have a natural place in Bortianor where these water go into the sea, and it comes, and we normally pave ways for it to go into the sea when the rains come. You understand? Sometimes it happens by itself, and you see it going into the sea. But because people are built in the buffer, people have, put up buildings all over the place at Tetegu and other places. The least water that is filled from the dam, then somebody wants the water to go so that they can have a safe ground to dwell. And that's what is happening. When we stop giving permit to the people to build in the river or the buffer zone, these things will stop. And then we'll be able to block even that side so that the fisher folks who also fish from this river can also, make their lives better. So there's so much that we all ought to go and look into, and then we bring solutions for future. Let's talk about the concerns of safety. Because as we speak, it's not as though the schools within the community will be built. What are you putting in place to prevent the recurrence of what the unfortunate incidents recorded within the community? Thank you so much. Right away, my boss, as in the MC, Joseph Sirinyani, was there. He came along. Though the thing happened at the wager site, he came along, and we have engaged the community halfway, and we are going to have them again so that we can put measures in place to forestall such things happening. One of them is to get them a bigger boat so that the children can be going to school, and then we'll then be looking into the future and see whether it will be feasible enough with GS involved and see whether they can also have school there so that all these things can be solved.
Dan Bright-Abayat is Assembly member for the area, and that's the main reason why I want to bring in Dr. Kola at this point, because, Doc, you've just heard from the Assembly member for the area. Safety is much more of a concern now. You're an expert in that area. What would you advise in this case? We have young people crossing the river almost on a daily occasion.
My first condolence has to go to the family of the deceased pupils who were going to school to make a better living in the near future. So I express my condolence to the family and to all the authorities in that very community. Yeah, as you rightly said, I think the first thing we should be thinking of is our children, our pupils should be taught how to swim. That is the first basic thing we have to do. That if you know you are living close to a water body, you should understand that anything can happen at every point in time. So you should learn the basic skill that in case you find yourself in any pool of water, what is the first thing you have to do? Then secondly, another thing which I think we should be thinking of is the provision of life jackets. The lives of these children could have been saved if the canoe in which they were traveling had life jackets. And we have specific life jackets which could be worn by children. We have the ones that can be worn by the adults. And if these two basic things were actually in place, I think we wouldn't have recorded this high number of incidents in this area. Besides, this is not the first time we've heard of this case. It's all over Ghana. But just that this happened in a place where it is close to Accra. I saw on one of your platforms, I think in March or so, that a 2-year-old child also died. Have you wondered what might have caused this death? So, my brother, that is that.
But going forward, the Assembly member not so clear on the safety protocol, what would you urge parents to be considerate about?
What I urge parents to do is, as I said earlier, we should think of learning how to swim. And children learn very fast. So why don't we encourage our children to learn swimming at a very young age? And this would make them to feel comfortable when they find themselves in any pool of water. And when there's any form of mishap, they will know how to maneuver their ways to safety.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you, Dr. Kola, for your time here on The Pulse.